Hello. This little video is going to be about how to learn to tame your negative thoughts. I'm Debbie Aldous. Now, first of all, it might be helpful if we understood where these negative thoughts were actually coming from. So why are they there? Why do we have negative thoughts at all? For that, we need to go back into history. Look at when we started to evolve as human beings. Each human had programmed in them a natural negativity bias, and it was there for a very good reason. It was there to keep us safe. We had to be always on the lookout for animals, on the lookout for dangerous and poisonous insects, and even from other hunter-gatherer tribes that might have wanted to hurt us or injure us. So therefore, inside each human, we've got a natural negativity bias. We don't need that anymore. Hopefully, we don't have to look out for vicious animals or for other hunter tribe people coming to get us. And so nowadays, what we need to do is learn how to control our negative thoughts, because these negative thoughts can do us more damage than positive. And so I'm going to go with the first method, and this is learning to not trust our first negative thought. Now, if you are somebody that has a tendency to think negatively all of the time, this even could have become a learned habit. It might have taken you 10, 20, 30, 40 years to develop very negative thinking. And if you are somebody that can identify with that, begin to learn not to trust your first thought, because it will always be a negative one. For example, if somebody suggests to you, maybe, let's do this, straight away you'll think, no, I can't do that. I can't go there. That won't work. If this is something you have a tendency to do, learn to trust your second, more rational thought. So almost like observe that thought and think, I've said no there. Hold on. Maybe I should give it a go. Maybe I can try it. So almost become an observer of your thoughts. And if why not, I'll give it a go and see what happens next. So the first technique is learning not to trust your first thought, because that will always be a negative one. It might be a given if you have a tendency to think negatively with everything. I'm going to show you how this can impact your life. I'm going to take two people. One person has a tendency to think negative all of the time, and the other person has a much more positive reality and the way they look at life. So these two people are walking down a road, exactly the same road. Now the first person has a happy disposition, and they see a large house on the right hand side. Now that house is really old. It's falling apart. In the top window you can even see a tree growing. Broken glass that catches the reflection. Huge big garden with somebody's been throwing cans and rubbish in there, and tiles falling off the roof. One person sees that house and thinks, wow, think about all of the stories that would have been told. That would have been a beautiful home for a family to live in. They then look to the sky and they see a sunny day and they think it's a beautiful day today. They look across the road, and across the road there is a person walking a dog, and they think, it's a big Rottweiler. I think, I love those dogs. Exactly the same road, somebody with a permanently negative disposition walks by. They see the house on the left and they think, what a mess, that should be pulled down. They look in the sky and they see the sun, but in the far distance is a cloud, and they think it's going to rain later. I wish I would have brought my umbrella. And across the road they see the dog, and they think, if that gets off the lead, that would give me a nasty bite. It's exactly the same road. Only one person sees things in a positive way, and one person sees the same place in a very negative way. Your thoughts literally create your reality. So the first person is living in a much happier, world, which makes them feel better. The other person is living in a more negative world, and that's making them feel bad. But it is exactly the same street they are going along. You can, with practice, begin to change your thoughts, eliminate and begin to reduce hugely negative thoughts, and therefore begin to live in a much happier world. Now, another technique that you can use to control and tame your negative thoughts can be, if you constantly have the same negative thought, when you become aware of it, notice it, acknowledge it, and then imagine that thought being put into a bin in your head. So literally imagine that thought coming all the way up to your head. Imagine a lid being taken off and the thought being dropped in there. Or if it works better for you, writing that thought out on a piece of paper and physically throwing it in the bin. Again, what this is doing is accepting you've had that thought, and then do something with that thought that's not beneficial for your life. Either throw it away in a mental image of you in your head or in a physical bin. And then what you need to do is move that thought on. So start thinking about something else. Distract yourself if need be. Now, another way this could bring us on to the next point, which is how mindfulness can really help control your negative thoughts. Everything that causes us stress or anxiety, it's not the moment itself, it's our thought and it's our ruminations about that moment. So for example, if somebody was rude to you, that rudeness was upsetting, but then we overthink about it. We go over and over and over again in our mind's eye thinking, how dare that person do that? How could they do that? And we literally keep on worrying and stressing about it. We don't let that thought go. And we can hold on to that thought for hours. Could even ruin our day. So it's not the action itself, it's our worrying and that's our thinking about that thought or stressing about the future. Now let me tell you a little tale to illustrate that point. This is a tale about, and it's a long, long time ago, 2 Zen Buddhist monks. Now one was a Grand Master Buddhist monk and the other was a novice. And they were in the silent order. And many, many, many years ago, they were travelling across the land. And they were walking to where they were going to spend that night, in a hostel overnight. The weather was dreadful. It was chucking it down with rain. The roads and the paths were beginning to become flooded. But as they walked, they saw a lady wanting to cross over the road, but that road had almost turned into a river. And so the older, more established Zen Buddhist monk, he picked up that lady and he carried her over the stream, which was the road, and she thanked him and walked on. Well, as they walked, the young novice Buddhist Zen monk was getting angry. He thought, how dare he pick that lady up? How very dare him? We're not even supposed to speak to other people, let alone physically pick somebody up. And he began to get fuming, and you could see it almost like bubbling in him. Well, 8 hours later, when they got to the place they were going to spend the night, the young monk said to the older one, how dare you? How could you have done it? How could you have picked that lady up and took her across the water? And the older Buddhist monk said, why are you still carrying that maiden, that young lady? I put her down 8 hours ago. You see, this is what we can do. We can carry that thought around with us. We can keep going over and over and over. And if we keep thinking about that same thought, it can easily cause anxiety and stress and even physical illnesses. And so if you use the mindful approach, if you've had a thought that is negative, acknowledge that thought and then let it go and move on. You can even breathe that negative thought out or ground yourself in the moment. One way that you can ground yourself in the moment is using all your senses. So maybe if you've had a negative thought like, that man was so rude to me, breathe that thought out, bring yourself back to the moment by noticing things in your surrounding. What can I feel? And spend some time noticing what you can feel. What can I smell? What can I see? Look around at things. What can I hear? Bring the attention to your hearing. And then move on. Or the breath is always with you. So you can go to the breath, just become aware of the cool air as it enters your body and the warm air as it leaves you. If you are feeling stressed, if you are feeling anxious, there is a very, very good breath for managing that. And it's called the 4-7-8 breath. And this is a helpful breath to learn to help you control anxiety or negative thoughts. Breathe in through your nose for the count of 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold it for the count of 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Breathe out through your mouth to the count of 8. So breathe in through your nose for the count of 4. Hold it and count to 7 and out through your mouth to the count of 8. And that's another little technique that you can use to manage anxious thoughts and negativities. Another really helpful thing to do, it's worth sometimes thinking, how important is that negative thought? Will it really matter this time tomorrow, this time next week? To keep things in perspective. So think about that person that was rude to us. Does that really matter this time tomorrow? Does this really matter this time next week? So keep things in perspective. That can make a big difference when you come to controlling your negative thought. Just how important is it worrying about that thought? And lastly, you can control your environment. So if negativity is something that affects you, look at where your news sources are. Do you really need to control or look at the news once an hour? Do you really need to have those negative news bulletins coming through to your phone? If you're on social media, is it really worth actually having all of these crime dates? Because I know some people subscribe to local community forums, but if they make you feel bad, they will affect you in a negative way. It's much more positive having good news being fed to you, having nice things come to you in your social media. So you have got control of your environment. And so it's worth looking at the sources that are exposed to you. And if you feel these have a detrimental effect, just stop the bulletins coming through and begin to take control of the life and the environment that you live in.